gamers all around the universe. Here today, I'm going to give you guys my opinion on the Japanese in terms of balance, in terms of if it's good or not, in terms of if it needs to be nerfed, buffed, and what the future of the Civ is. And I ended up playing Japanese for 2 days instead of 1 day because I felt like I didn't have enough games. If you're watching this on YouTube, there should be a video before this one where you'll see some of the games examples that I have played. Yeah, I played, so the very first game I actually played with Japanese ended up losing against Delhi because I just got outmassed, and I was trying a lot of different strategies. Only last 3-4 games I feel like I figured it out what the best way to play, but I was trying like 1TC aggression, I was trying samurais, I was trying mounted samurais, I was trying the Yumi, aka their archer, I was trying the Ona Bugattis, and this is kind of where I have landed. So let's just get started with the strategies. So I've tried 2 town center strategies, and I think if you're playing against a more passive civ or a boom civ, I think you can go 2 town centers and you can boom. But if you're playing against an aggressive civ, I just don't see how you have enough units. Like, even I've had a few games where I did go 2TC, but there's just so many units from opponent making them on 1TC that I feel like I just cannot recover and I cannot manage to produce enough. Now, when I say like aggressive civs, I mean like civs like Delhi, like English that can mass absurd amount of units, like French, because even though you have 2TC and they have the Quota Storehouse that gives you farms, your units in Feudal, in my opinion, are pretty underwhelming. And this mostly comes from the Yumi Bannermen, the Yumi Archers, whatever their name is. And the reason for that is they need basically a +1 upgrade and a Bannerman to be like the other archers in terms of damage, even though they have higher movement speed. You have kind of like I call them budget knights, where you can produce horsemen and you can make a bannerman for the horses, which is kind of like a knight, and then your horsemen a lot stronger. But in general, if you want to fight with Japanese in Feudal, it does not seem that great against super aggro civs, but it can be played against like civs like Abbasid, like China, like Jushi's Legacy, against Jeanne d'Arc, HRE, and so on. You can do 2TC, but it doesn't, it feels like it's not the strat for it to go for every time. So if you're looking to play like one strat every time, 2TC is probably not it, but you should have it in your pool of strategy to pull out from. Feudal fighting, like 1TC versus 1TC, I did create a guide when the new civs came out, and I made a 1TC Japanese guide with Ona Bugattis and Samurais, and I think you can have success with it. I don't think it's a good build, and I've kind of said that in that video where it was like, well, this is what I kind of cooked up with 1TC, but I'm sure that other stuff is going to come out, things are going to get changed, nerfed. So that guide that I have for Japanese on YouTube is playable. It's okay, but it's nothing where I'm like, yo, that is the way to do it. So I will be making a Japanese guide in the future with the build that I ended up landing on and that I liked the most and felt the most comfortable. So there's the Japanese on water. Now I think Japanese on land is somewhat underwhelming. Not terrible, not being able to win. And actually, again, the playstyle that I came up with in the end seemed very strong, and I felt like, oh, I can beat like any civ with this even. But in general, I think if I'm to play tournaments or something, or and there's hybrid maps and there's land maps, I would probably use Japanese on hybrid maps always. And if you're playing Japanese, you should play hybrid maps because that's where Japanese is the strongest. And it also got banned a lot in the recent tournaments because of that, because of the shinobis and because of the cheaper fishing ships. So Japanese on hybrid maps, very nice. Or even water maps. It's a very, very good civ, so it does not lack there. Now, the build that I've liked the most, that I've done the most, is the Castle Rush with Japanese. And that is probably the build I will be making a guide for. I actually have two guides, don't I? I do. I have one TC Japanese guides and I have the 2 TC Japanese guide too. So I do plan to make another Japanese guide, this time for the Castle Rush build, which I think is by far the best. Now, the reason why this build is by far the best is Mounted Samurai, initially I thought they're nothing special, but I'm liking them more and more. And the way it basically works out is you get to castle somewhat quickly. It's not like HRE fast. And you make a stable, and then all you need to do is put the Yorishiro, the relic, into the stable, and you basically work at 200% efficiency. So you're basically working like kind of like a burger, but for horses. And you just go Mounted Samurai, you go for the Bannerman for Mounted Samurai, you get +1 armor, and then you just spam produce them, you harass the opponent, and meanwhile, all you gotta do is start picking up the relics. Once you pick up the relics, and once you see what the opponent is going for, there's 2 options you can do. You can either add 2nd TC or even 3rd TC, or you can just commit to 1 TC and all in your opponent. And I've tried playing with Mounted Samurai into Yumi, aka the archers, and I've tried playing Mounted Samurai into Onas, which both I had success with, but I actually liked Mounted Samurai into Yumi archers quite a bit. The reason for that is Mounted Samurai beat men-at-arms, they beat archers. They do actually decently well against spearmen. They're not going to win out on spearmen on equal amounts, but they do decently because they have that shield that blocks the first attack. And then if you get in some kind of engagement, if you have a lot of Yumi archers, the opponent actually cannot run away because they have higher movement speed. So they actually come out really nicely in that mid game where the opponent engages in the middle of the map, and you can kind of chase them down and kill a lot of the units, not with just Mounted Samurai, but with the archers as well. So initially I thought Yumi suck, and they do suck in Feudal, but I think in Castle and Imperial they're quite decent. I've also tried some strategies where I would capture a Sacred Site the moment I hit Castle. Instead of going for the relics, I just capture Sacred Sites, and then I build either a tower into just mass units, or I build TCs on the Sacred Sites and I upgrade them to the Rocket TC, and I actually got a few wins like that. And yeah, if you're watching on Twitch, that's going to be uploaded on YouTube as well. If you're watching on YouTube, it's probably uploaded already, so you can check those out for the gameplay, or you can always just catch me live on Twitch and watch there. So yeah, I found that to be pretty good style. You manage to get all the relics, then with your Ishiros you can get 4 relics total, which give you 75 gold per minute. And then if you get the 5 relics, like the normal relics, that's just so much free gold to the point where you don't need to mine it at all. So I like that quite a bit, and it seemed like a very nice style. And then going into Castle seems a very strong time for Japanese. It used to be Imperial, but Ozutsu got nerfed. I think that Feudal is probably the weakest point for Japanese. I think that Castle is probably the strongest with Mounted Samurai pressure into like Onas or Samurai. Well, Samurais don't make sense because you die to crossbows. So Mounted Samurais into Onas or Yumis. And then in Imperial, after the nerf happened, I thought Japanese would be quite like bad or a lot worse. But it actually isn't that bad in my opinion. The reason for that is you have a lot of unit comps you can go for. And if you go for the build that I just mentioned, which is the castle rushing build, you actually have a lot of gold. And you don't need a lot of traders in the late game if you even get to that point, because you have a lot of passive gold income. And because of that, you'll be able to still produce gold units and have usually more units than the opponent because you use less villagers and traders than they do. I think samurais are okay. I used to think samurais are a lot better. I think they're still good in Imperial, but I think a combo of mounted samurais, onas, mounted samurais, onas, samurais, and then you add some Ozutsu to destroy walls is very, very strong, especially if you attack at like multiple points on the map. But I think that Japanese went from like a civ that you're supposed to build like a death ball and just go and kill your opponent because of Ozutsu. Now it has turned into a civ that is more kind of like you're supposed to go all over the map and overwhelm your opponent with units rather than just do one big push, because what counters Japanese in that Imperial, I feel like, is just a bunch of crossbows and some front line to tank for the crossbows, because a lot of your good units get countered by crossbows. So you kind of want to avoid that and break away from that. And so I definitely changed my mind a bit regarding Japanese. I thought they would be terrible on land, but with the Castle Rush build, I think they're quite decent. And I played a lot of games, won a lot of games with it, and I'll definitely be trying it out at some point in tournaments on land, because I do think it has good potential. And we've seen some of these new civs like Ayubin and Japanese now are played with castle rushing, which I think is quite interesting, because I think for a while we were in the meta where it was like only feudal all-ins, and then only 2 TC, and then it was only castle rushing, and it was only feudal all-ins, and back to 2 TC only. And now I feel like we have a good mix of civs that can go 2 TC, that can stay 1 TC, castle rush, and so on and so forth. Now, regarding the nerfs and the buffs, so I think that Japanese in feudal could use some help, but that would also mean that it would probably need to be toned down a little bit, maybe in castle. I'm not sure where that would be. I still think that Yurishiros are really, really, really good, because if you think about it, Yurishiro gives 75 gold per minute, and this is not you like capturing relics, this is not you hoping to get 75 gold per minute. This is guaranteed. So if you build that landmark, you get 300 gold per minute, right? Which is quite a lot. It can't really be stopped. You're always gonna get it. The opponent can't do anything about it. And it sets you up nicely for the late game. But also, it spawns a priest every 4 minutes. So you will, until you have 4 Yurishiros put in the buildings. So starting up with Yurishiro is kind of like a part of the whole deal why Japanese is so strong. With a lot of civs, if you age up to castle, you have to build a stable, you have to build a monastery, you have to, do this, do that, and then you start doing your thing. With Japanese, you have like a burst in castle of units and taking the relics, because you put Yurishiro in stable immediately. The samurais the mounted samurais are coming immediately. You instantly put pressure on the map or defend, and then you take the priest, and then you go and collect the relics immediately. And even if you don't have monastery, you can just drop them off in your base and go get more, which is quite nice, and it feels quite good. So I think that maybe they would need some help in feudal. I think that Yurishiro, a landmark, I forgot what it's called, is probably a bit too strong, because it's just no risk at all. And I think that's kind of part of why I think it's so strong. Now, I would like Shinobis to be nerfed on water maps. I don't know how. Maybe reduce the disable on buildings ability. Because if you play water maps and you use the ability to disable production for 30 seconds, that is such a long time. And basically by the time that's expired, the new Shinobi comes and then disables as well, and it's never ending, right? So I would like to see that ability nerfed to maybe like 20 seconds, but buff Shinobis in some other way on land maps, because Shinobis on land maps are pretty underwhelming. So I would really like if they buff them somehow, so that there's actually like a choice. Like, do I go Shinobi or do I go Kura Storehouse? Because right now it's like Kura Storehouse on land, and then you go Shinobis on hybrid. And maybe that's okay, but that's just kind of what I thought of. Castle landmarks, the Yurishiro one is really good. The other landmark, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't used it once. I made it when Japanese got announced. I saw the ability, I saw what it does, and I was like, cool, I don't think I'm ever gonna make this. So the idea behind it, like, I can see it, but it's so situational. Basically what that landmark does is you make monks that debuff the enemy and reduce their damage done by 50%. Now this might have some use against like heavy knight civs, where you debuff their cavalry so they deal less damage, or against OTD. But then again, it's like, would I rather debuff their army for 50% damage or have 300 gold per minute for free? I would rather have the gold. They also have another ability on those monks, which is when you do a Wall of Law, every unit of yours within Wall of Law gets a 20%, I think it's 20% damage buff for your units that lasts a bit, which is cool. And like maybe it's gonna have some kind of play where it's like you go for that and then you bring a relic in the main fight and then you activate Wall of Law and buff your units. But then it's one of those, if you lose the fight, then you just donated a relic, right? So it's like, it's cool, but if the monks had that ability without holding the relic, where they can Wall of Law like once every 5 minutes without a relic, and then they also buff your units, that would be pretty good. But the fact that you need a relic there, that's such a big risk that, again, if you lose the fight, you lose a relic. So it's not just that you lost an army and you lost the priest, so you also lose gold per minute, and not only you lost it, you gave it to your opponent, so it makes it even worse. And then Imperial, you have the choice between two landmarks, which I don't know what they're called. So one is Castle of the Crow, which is kind of interesting. Basically what it does is it's a keep, and then you get a trader and you can select which outpost is going to come from, and it gives you resources like every few minutes. I can't remember how long it takes. And it also gives you stone and gold and food and wood. And I think this is not actually that bad as initially I thought it was, because you do get a good amount of resources. Now, you can also trade with water. So if there's a water outpost, you can set the keep to there, and it's actually going to be like a ship. And when it arrives to shore, it's going to transform to trader. And that's cool, but it can get killed on the way. So unless you have some kind of safe trade, your trader might die or might get picked off. So there's that. And then the second one is the one that is more popular, which is Tanegashima Gunsmith. So it stockpiles weapon supplies every 30 seconds, and you can produce instantly gunpowder units. Ozutsu hand cannoneers cost one of these stockpile supplies, so you get 2 hand cannoneers a minute for free. Or you can produce siege, but I think the siege costs 3 or 4 or maybe even 5. I think it costs 3 or 4 of these tickets, so you can get like a free bombard every minute and a half, which is actually a very strong landmark. And on top of your, if you get 5 relics and you get Yorishiro relics giving you 300 gold per minute, on top of that, you basically get more gold for free with these tickets. So that's why you don't really need a lot of gold with Japanese and Imperial, because you get so much of it for free. And you also get access to Ozutsu, and you get access to Ribaldequins. So I think this landmark right now is just more commonly used. It gives you a lot of resources. If you think about it, it gives you access to 2 unique units. So I think that's pretty cool, pretty good. And, Ozutsu got nerfed, so they are not as strong as they used to be, but they're still pretty good. They destroy the keeps, but they do a little bit less damage to the units themselves. I would love to see something done to Japanese in Feudal where it makes them more viable to play. I'm not sure what that is. I think part of the problem is, as much as I like the Bannerman idea, you can only choose one Bannerman in Feudal for a long time. So yes, you can upgrade your TC again, but it costs 600 stone. And then not only it costs 600 stone, then you have to pay for the Bannerman, which are very expensive. So I don't know, maybe you should get like a free Bannerman when you upgrade that. You still need to train it, but it's free. Maybe the cost of the Bannerman should be a bit reduced. I don't know. Maybe the first upgrade of the TC to Daimyo should be giving you 2 Bannermen instead of 1, because it feels very limited when you are trying to go Horseman Archer, and then your Horsemen have Bannermen and they're really good, and then you get pushed, but your Archers are doing -1 damage compared to other Archers, and it's quite noticeable. And that's kind of what's screwing you over, because if the Feudal lasts for so long where you have Bannermans for your infantry and horsemen and archers, it's not that bad. But without it, it feels pretty underwhelming. Yeah, maybe they should use maybe they should do that. +1 banner limit on age up. So once you age up to feudal, you can immediately create a one bannerman without upgrading daimyo, and then your first daimyo upgrade gives you +1. So that would mean that in early feudal, you could have 2 bannermen, which would then open up a lot of possibilities for Japanese, where you can open with a stable, and instead of building horsemen, you can build a bannerman, which then you can use as a knight. So that would help Japanese in feudal a lot. So that's something they could do, and I hope they do. But other than that, I've been enjoying playing Japanese quite a bit. Definitely check out the games that I've played, because you'll see that the games that I've played were like very one-sided with the build that I've done. It seemed very, very strong, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing it more. So yeah, that is my honest opinion and feedback about Japanese. Right now, it's definitely, in my opinion, a castle rush civ, but I do think that it has so much variety in units that I think some slight changes might change the way that Japanese is played. Not necessarily change the previous style, but like add on to it. It's very easy to build on Japanese as a civ right now by adding a bannerman in feudal. Then it can be a feudal civ, it can be a 2TC civ a lot easier, it can be a castle rush civ. So there's a lot of variety there, and it's playable in water, so I think it's very, very good, because you can do a lot of things with it, and we'll see what comes in the future with it. If you're watching this on YouTube, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something new. I hope you enjoyed my feedback on the Japanese. And the next civ that I'll be uploading is going to be Jeanne d'Arc, and then Jushi's Legacy, and then we're going to do the 10 old civs. I'm going to be spending basically 16 different days playing every civ for a full day, and then giving my opinion of the civ, like I just did, buffs, nerfs, possibilities, and so on. What I think the best styles builds are, because you guys enjoyed it, and you guys wanted it, so there it is. YouTube gamers, thanks so much for watching. Check me out on Twitch. I'm probably live right now. Twitch gamers, let's keep going.